Everyone, it is 1:04 p.m. And I'd like to call the meeting to order. Britton, would you mind doing the roll call?
Sure. Dr. Baravecchio. Ms. Bazile. Ms. Crane,
Here.
Ms. Hagan,
Here.
Ms. Hano,
Here.
Ms. Harmon,
Present.
Ms. Heimel, Mr. Roca,
Here.
and Ms. Stewart.
Yeah.
We have 6, and that is a quorum.
Thank you, Britton. Before we get started, I just want to remind you all of a few rules. For attendees, please raise your hand to speak and wait to be recognized by the chair before speaking. To help the meeting run smoothly, please keep side conversations to a minimum and comments related to the topic we are discussing. All comments and questions from committee members and the public are limited to 3 minutes, so please keep that in mind. Also, comments about a person's character will not be allowed. And then. Okay, so everyone should have reviewed the July meeting summary, which was attached in the agenda you received via email. There's also a copy in your committee packet. If there are no objections to the summary, we can approve the summary by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? Hearing no objections, the July meeting summary is passed by unanimous consent. First on the agenda is an update on non-contractual activities. We have Julie Hagan from OCDD, who will share with us updates from the department. Julie, would you like to get us started?
Sure. I'll just go through the agenda items as requested. The first item is in relation to our Act 421 Children's Medicaid option, or our TEFRA update. This is the current information as of September 21st, 2023. We've received 3,368 applications for that program. And then the information you have there, our Medicaid and OCDD team members make up our TEFRA team, and they follow through. I think they look at this weekly. They're looking at shifting it to monthly now that we've been in the program for a while, just to take a look at the average amount of time things are taking. And then to look at where there's approvals or denials, what are the reasons for those potential denials. As you can see, the majority of them are a failure to respond, which means we don't get back information to be able to finish the application process. And then there are some who actually withdraw, and the difference there is that they just let us know we're no longer interested in pursuing this option. So that's the percentages and the breakdowns there. The most current information. Are there any questions about that? Okay, then I'll jump to some of our other OCDD major activities. During the July meeting, I gave you guys sort of a rundown of all the different pieces of legislation that our office was monitoring. There are 2 that our office is most involved in. One of those is House Resolution 209, and it asked our department to form a group to study the uncompensated work of support coordination agencies. We have established a work group. We've had, actually, it says initial, but we've had 2 meetings, and we are focused on recommendations. There will be a report that will be finished and sent to the legislature by February that just outlines what some potential options are around those concerns. We also had House Resolution 200, which asked us to have a study group around looking at alternative assessment tools to inform reimbursement rates for intermediate care facilities. So we have held a meeting with the required partners there and are working on that report as well. The assessment tool, the way that the intermediate care facilities, which can be large group homes or small group homes, are paid, it's based on the size of the facility and based on the needs of the people, and there's kind of 4 levels of amount of assistance they need. That's based on a tool called the ICAP. It stands for something, inventory of something, I forget. But it is very old and it's very outdated. The reason why a lot of states like us still continue to use it is because it's one of the only free assessment tools that actually is got validity and reliability and all of that. So to replace it has a fiscal cost. So, but our report will detail what are some other considerations and then what are the potential fiscal impacts tied to that. No one can say that the ICAP is not outdated. Y'all, it still has a rotary phone that people don't like. If you're 20, you don't even, or maybe even 30, you don't even know what the rotary phone is. So, but so that report will give recommendations. I'll go through all of these if that's okay, and then I'm happy to go back and take questions. In terms of, this may be one of the last times we have a COVID Appendix K exceptions update. We've done a lot of discussion in this group as we've worked through that. We've now done training for support coordinators, direct support providers, and people in self-direction employers on what we call unwinding of our waiver flexibilities. All of those are recorded and on our OCDD website, along with the PowerPoint presentations that go along with that. I think I saw a flyer that went out either yesterday or today. We are planning another road show. We will clear up a couple of things that still seem to be outstanding around post PHE, but we're going to be focusing too on, okay, what are we now looking forward to and what are some of the upcoming activities? I've gotten a lot of calls and requests. We are going to 9 regions, and we intended to have a final sort of a virtual option as well that inadvertently got left off of the flyer. So for those folks, we will be adding a virtual option. We know not everybody can come in person. We had not been able to secure a location in the Hammond area. It's just really hard in the Hammond, St. Tammany area to find a place that'll hold. In our last road shows, we had anywhere from 100 to 250 people. And so we don't want to have to turn somebody away who shows up. So we've been trying to find locations that'll hold like 200, 250 people. And for whatever reason, Hammond and St. Tammany, well, let me say this, we're looking for free space that will hold that many people. And Hammond and St. Tammany don't seem to have much free space that can do that. So we didn't want to delay because we wanted to make sure people had as much notice as possible about when those meetings would be. So we got the flyer out. So we will be sending an update when we have that Region 9 location secured. And as soon as we send that, that will also include then the virtual option. We are also trying to think about, it's difficult when you have the virtual option. It's been very difficult for us to figure out when you have anywhere from 400 to 600 people on the call to navigate questions with questions and answers. We know it's important for people to be able to ask those questions though. So we're just trying to, some of the feedback we've gotten is that in the in-person, people can go around and ask me questions. During the virtual, we can't do that. When we tried to read the questions, we sometimes get the same questions kind of over and over. And then even when I've got folks helping me, it's hard to know. And so we end up spending extra time just trying to read those. We're trying to figure out the most efficient way that we can do that so that during the virtual option, people can either come off of mute to be able to ask their question, because that seems easier, so that way, if you have a question and you have a question, if 3 people put the same question in the chat, that's different than being able to come off of mute. So we are trying to figure that part out and be able to navigate that better when we do have our virtual meeting. And I can't tell you because I really don't understand IT stuff at all. It's how you set up webinars, what you can and can't have access to do in the Zooms. We also have had requests to record them and put them on our website. We are going to do our best to try that a couple of times. We told people we were recording it and would have it on the website. And we had the record button going. We thought it was working, but then it has to convert. and it didn't convert and we didn't have it. So we're just trying to be careful because we still are trying to navigate some of the technology to make sure we can do what we say we're going to do, but we are trying to, we will try to have a way that we can unmute people to be able to talk. And then we will also try to record that so that we can make sure that it's on the website for people who just can't attend even during the virtual timeframe. You know, I put this on here too. One of the things that we are trying to do, and in our last committee meeting, somebody talked about education. One of the things that we are trying to do from our state office is to help make sure that we are educating people more and that people do better understand sort of what our office does, how you access services, what services are available. There's just a lot of misinformation out there. I don't follow the social media accounts, but I know people sometimes screenshot them and send them to me. And there's people who just have a lot of questions, you know, about our office, about our services and what we do. So we are trying to come up with, and we did the DD Council. I know that may be a later of talking about the videos that we did. That was sort of a start that'll kind of get you to some how-tos for early steps and waiver services. But we're also trying to think about short 10 to 15 minute informationals that we can put out there so that if you have questions about what the Family Flexible Fund does, or questions about what are the employment services we have, that we have a place at least that people can go to find that information. So we're working on that. It's going to take us a while because, as I mentioned, we are IT challenged in some ways at trying to figure out how to do that. But we are definitely working on those. So we're also, as we're doing that, we're really preparing for our road show. And I'm just curious from you guys, is there anything as the DD community that y'all are hearing that you think would be helpful for me or my team to share during the road show that would help people better understand? Yes, ma'am.
I work with high schoolers who are 18 and over, and they are not registered with the Office of the OCDD yet. If we bring them there, would they be able to register and see what services are available? Because otherwise they would not have a way to get there.
To the regional office?
To the roadshow.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Could we do that?
Mhm.
Oh, perfect field trip, yes.
Anyone is welcome. Where the road shows are open to the general public.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Would they be able to register for services at the roadshow?
Oh, register.
See,
No.
That's what I'm talking about, because they don't have a way to get to the office. You want to let them know what services are available, because most of them are not registered.
Well, let me make sure that for each of the regions, we have the information, like most of the regions, you would have to go in person for the assessment piece of it. So they would have to, but there are some places that can help with transportation and things like that. But for sure, one of the things we'll make sure we do in every region is make sure people know at least what number they can call, because there can be some assistance to help them get there. But they do, even if we had an ability to apply, and I can find out if we can do that. But even if they can do that, there would still be some in-person component that they would have to do. But I can find that out.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes.
I was also thinking about what to know by age groups. Like I have a 12-year-old. What do I need to know before he turns 18? So kind of like maybe age groups after you've turned 18, what should you be doing? So kind of
Okay.
a roadmap for future.
So
Don't we,
Oh, she can go first. Go ahead, Joe.
don't we have OCDD flow chart somewhere?
We do.
Okay.
I can recirculate that, but it's not necessarily going to help by age group, but yeah,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
Okay, we'll go with Lauren and then Anna.
sorry.
Okay, well, I'm personally on the self-direct. And one thing that I was talking to my coordinator about is about there's discrepancy over if you can put your notes on the EEV or if you should keep paper notes. or both, what would be your recommendation, and is there really an answer, or?
Yeah, so you can put them into electronic visit verification, but Acumen and Morning Sun don't have to keep that long term. So
Mhm.
since we have to keep those notes for 6 years, you can put them in there, but then you just have to print them out. And there is the ability to print them out.
Okay,
So
so those are acceptable.
it is acceptable to put it in there and print it
Print it
out
out,
so that
okay.
you have that hard copy. Again, unfortunately, we're still working on trying to come up to the
Right,
last
that's
20
what she
years
said.
IT. But there's not a way to archive and keep it. So I think that's
Okay.
where the confusion came in.
Cause yeah, my
Because
direct,
you still have to print them, and we're working on getting that clarification out.
cause yeah, my direct service worker was asking me like, do we have to have the forms and that, or?
The other
Yeah, it's
thing
good
that
to
we
know.
learned, and that's one of the modules that we're working on now, is like when I mentioned the 10 to 15 minute, one of those modules is on progress notes and how to
That's-
do
yeah, that's what I
progress
was
notes.
watching.
Where do you keep them? What do you need to do? Because there seems to be a lot of, and that doesn't have to do with
Yeah.
post PHE, like there just seems
Mhm.
to be a lot of confusion around that. There seems to be a lot of confusion around our restraint policy, so we're gonna be doing a seminar of informational session on that. And reporting of critical incidents, that all those, again, they weren't tied to what we were talking about with post PHE, but there just seemed to be a lot of questions and confusion. So we're gonna make sure we get informationals out so people understand. It's not acceptable to me to just say, go read my policy, because when I read my
Right.
policy, I can't really.
But I saw the videos were,
So
yeah,
We're working. on
videos were
this.
good. Okay.
I had a question. I noticed that your date and times are all during the day. Do you have any evening options? Are y'all gonna do like a platform in the evening for parents that work and?
We can do that with a virtual. We can maybe do 2 or 3 virtual options that we do in the evening.
Okay.
Because it's hard to do, so. It's hard to do those, in person. Because, not because of like our time or anything,
Okay.
because the free locations that we look for usually are only available until 5.
I got you.
So like we usually go to libraries and places like that, that'll kind of allow us to use, because I don't really have a budget to be able, and you'd be amazed how much these people want to charge you just to rent a room for 2 hours. And so that's why
Okay.
that's why it's harder when we're in person, but by all means, we can look at having some, maybe like a during the day virtual option and an evening virtual option. Somebody asked me about a weekend too. We maybe do a
Yeah.
Saturday or Sunday morning and see if that works for people.
Okay,
So we
thank
can look
you.
at that on our virtual options.
Thank you for those updates, Julie. Do we have any other questions before we move on?
I did have just one more,
Sorry.
no, that's okay. One more quick section, and I'm not gonna read all of this to you guys, but I did just want to highlight one thing. So the American Rescue Plan Act, those are our different initiatives and really just an update on where we are with those initiatives. One of the things that, is not on here that we're working to get approval on, and I'm gonna ask for information to be pushed out, and these actually are gonna be one in the evening and one, on a Saturday morning, in early November. We are trying to see if we can use some of our American Rescue Plan Acts as an additional stipend for families who are willing to foster children with disabilities. What we hear from foster families is that, or what we have heard is that there's some extra cost, whether that's transportation and gas to get to more doctor's appointments than you might normally see, or there's just other costs associated. So what we asked is there a way we could look at potentially an additional stipend? Now, I don't know whether I will or won't have that yet. But one of the things we work closely with, DCFS was super excited about that. They're actually doing a whole plan around recruitment as well. So we decided, and I don't know if you guys remember, Mike Billings, he used to be on the DD Council, but I called Mike too. He happens to foster children with disabilities. And he had a great idea, and we really kind of talked through having some focus groups. So if you or anyone you know are interested, and again, we'll be getting this flyer out within the next couple of days. We really want to have an opportunity during these 2 meetings. The meetings will be the same content, but DCFS will just kind of give a very high level, like, hey, here's how you even become a foster family, and here's some of the things you get as being a foster family. And then OCDD is gonna do a brief. So if you're a child with an OCDD statement of approval, you are automatically enrolled in Medicaid, you're automatically enrolled in Children's Choice Waiver. So like, here are some things that you can have available to you as a foster parent, the child will have to be able to support them so that they understand that. And then really focus most of the meeting on, we want to hear from either the target is people who do currently foster children with disabilities, or people who foster but are worried about fostering children with disabilities, and people who don't foster yet, but maybe have thought about it. And to really hear from them, like, what is it that would help you be more comfortable, accepting a child with a disability? And we also want to have, I think the largest area, the largest concern that I have are adolescents with disabilities. They have an extraordinarily difficult time placing kids over the age of 15 with disabilities, especially, autism and things like that. And so we really want to have some targeted discussion around that too. Like, what DCFS and I want to do is have some takeaways, like what can we do in our system to be able to help with recruitment in those areas. So please help us spread the word far and wide, because we want to really focus on hearing from families about how we can address that. Yes, ma'am. You had a question?
Yes, Laura.
Have you, and you probably already did this, did y'all?
Who?
CASA, Court Appointed Child Advocates?
I don't think so.
Yeah, they're a big, by the state to be involved.
Yeah.
And, I think it's Methodist Children's Group. They are faith-based, but the stuff, like the charity that they do is not faith-based, if that makes any sense. And they help children, they support foster families with, children with special needs.
Okay. I'll definitely, DCFS may know more about that. We have a planning
Yeah.
meeting on Friday, tomorrow. No,
But CASA
Friday.
is big throughout, every region has one, so.
Okay. We can definitely make sure they're included as part of the listening session, and then any follow-up that we would need to do.
We're going to go to Bambi.
So, Julie, we also have, you remember, in 2020, we brought together LDH and tried to bring in DCFS to address this.
Mhm.
I think you were on the meeting, so we do have some work that was already done. And like some of the people that we should get to the table, it never
Okay.
really, we couldn't get it to take off.
Yeah.
You remember that? Yeah, so I have some.
Do you mind sharing that with me?
Yeah.
So I can make
Mhm.
sure we get those folks.
Yeah, it's a Google Doc, so.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to see it's happening.
Okay.
Sorry, and
My name is Sandra Trammell.
okay.
I work with Aetna Better Health of Louisiana. I'm one of the, the only intellectual developmental disabilities administrators. So when we have our members that go through DCSF, we do have a care advocate team that helps with employment, but usually they're really young. I'm on the call, so case managers, utilization managers. So on our part, we're trying our best as as an MCO to try to help with foster kids and with special needs.
Now I conclude my report unless there's other questions.
Then we'll go on. I'll pass it over to Britton thank you, Julie. Next on the agenda is helping families of New Orleans. Britton, would you like to get us started?
Sure. Moving quicker than I thought. Okay, so as a follow-up to our last meeting, this is just an update on our Families Helping Families of New Orleans contract. Aisha Johnson, she's the executive director of FHF NOLA. And she was supposed to be joining us today, but she is having some medical issues and wasn't feeling well enough to be here today. But I think she's trying to get here tomorrow. So certainly if you have questions, if she is able to make it tomorrow, I hope you're able to ask her those questions. So really what I'm just going to do is kind of, I guess, just give you an overview of the information you have here. I'm hoping you were able to review this prior to the meeting, because I'm not going to go and read her quarterly report. I'm not going to read to you all the policies that she submitted. But as far as the status of their contract, so last meeting, the council had voted to use that additional. So our centers get an additional 56,000 and some change is how it breaks down. After the legislature had appointed that additional $500,000. So we had a total of $1 million in our state general fund that goes to all of our FHF centers, and it's split 9 ways with all the ones that we contract with. So the additional funding that center would have received, the council wanted that money to go towards paying down debts that the center may have. And then the rest of the funding would be used for their contractual obligation. And as mentioned at the last council meeting, we didn't think we could do that, but we did get word from our legal department that you indeed cannot do that. That is not an appropriate use of state general funds to give them to pay down any sort of debts. So the executive committee met again in August, and it basically just said that money, that additional 56,000 and some change would be removed from that center. Where they would receive half the funding, what they were intended to receive, and the other half would be split amongst the other centers. And then they would have these probationary requirements to follow, which that part of the motion that was put forth from this committee and through the council last council meeting has stayed pretty much the same. So included in your packet, there is a summary. I think the top, it says summary introduction. That is basically a summary page that Ms. Johnson put together for you guys that basically just says, this is kind of what we've done over the last quarter to help address the concerns that were in that audit and the concerns that the council had. Behind that is probationary requirements. And so that is just the information that we pulled out of the contract with that center. That'll tell you these are the additional things that they have to do. They're still required to do the other things that we always talk to you about during all of our meetings about the amount of outreaches they need to do and the trainings and things like that. But these are the additional requirements that they'll have to do for this year. And then behind that information is just additional information that Ms. Johnson provided. It gives you information about the different policies that they've or procedures that they've implemented, which were also in the probationary requirements. And so based on that, they did provide the financial reconciliations and revenue recognition policy that they were developing. They did create a policy for employee receivables. And currently there are no outstanding debts owed to the center by any employees. There was a concern about the payroll taxes for an employee that was not paid. It's my understanding, and it states it in there, but basically that employee was miscoded as a vendor. And so follow up with the IRS, that employee has created a plan with the IRS directly to repay back those funds. But because they were a vendor, this is not going to impact their center in any sort of way. There's no penalties that the center is responsible for. Those taxes that weren't paid, the center is not responsible for. Directly, the employee will directly be responsible for those payments. They also provided their updated records retention policy. They did provide documentation about the finance committee's responsibilities. That was one of the committees that their board established just so they could have more oversight of the finances. I am not certain if they have met one of the requirements of the probation stipulations here is not only provide us information about that committee, but also send those meeting minutes. So I don't have any minutes from those particular meetings, so I'm not certain if that committee has met yet or not. At the last meeting, let's see, and also in your packet, you have details about the actions that the board took to address the audit findings and additional information in there about how they plan on staying on top of those audit requirements. They provided you with information for the executive director and the assistant director, kind of what holds them accountable for management, efficient management, and making sure that their evaluations are done and how they kind of hold them accountable for their work. What is not included in your packet is a bank reconciliation statement. They did submit that. They sent us one for September that basically showed a positive cash flow. So they did not spend more than they took in last month. I did not provide that information because there is some personal information on there specific about you know, what personnel is making what, and I didn't think that was, to be put out there in the public record. But that is something that they need to submit to us monthly. We just make sure that they have that positive cash flow. And it details kind of what expenses they have, what their payroll is, what they've taken in from their different contracts. The other thing, some of you were on the email, but not all council members, but some of you were. There was an email back in September that Ms. Johnson sent. And so she did tender her resignation. She does plan on resigning, I believe, at the end of December. So December 31st will be her last day at Families Helping Families, New Orleans. I am not certain if they have selected an interim yet. I know that that is their goal. They're in the process of searching for someone now. If they haven't found anyone yet. But I don't know if they have someone in mind yet or not. Let's see. The other thing, there was a leadership assessment that we had in there that we wanted done by January 31st. That has not been completed yet. They still have time to do that. I know Ms. Johnson mentioned they were having some difficulty finding someone, especially that was affordable to be able to do that assessment. But I know they are working on that. We talked about a few different entities you could possibly reach out to see if there's some options there. And I think that's it. Honestly, outside of the documents that I've given you, I don't know that I can answer questions, but it's certainly up for you to discuss. I can try to answer. I'll tell you no if I don't know the answer. I can answer from our point of view of stuff that's contractually related, but not necessarily what they're working on. So I think that's everything.
Did you have a question, Joe?
Just wait a minute.
It's one moment. Gather the call.
When she swallows.
No.
Oh, good point.
Oh, am I not?
Anyone else have any questions?
When I was looking over the requirements, the first one was the quarterly report that was due by the 10th of October, January, July, April, and July. So did you get the report that was due for October the 10th from them?
Yes, I did get, that's what this summary is. It's basically just a detail of what they've worked on over this time period. Full disclosure, I did not get it by the 10th. I got it shortly thereafter. I think there was a misunderstanding of, I don't know, that this report had to come to us, but we do have it. That's what this is. Yeah. It's not a report that we've generated or created. It's simply just a summary, more so for your benefits. You know, everything that they worked on, and then they can provide that supporting documentation afterwards of those policies and procedures. I would suspect that future meetings, you won't have as much supporting documentation because they've already provided these policies and such. You probably more so just have that summary document that talks about what they're doing to stay on top of these things. And we probably will have to figure out what this will look like come January when there's new leadership.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the big technical difference between the motion this committee made in July and then the motion that the executive committee made on August 28th?
I think the only big difference was the stipulation of using some of that funding to pay down the debts. And then everything else was pretty much the same.
Okay, because LDH said that we could not do that.
Correct. The
Okay,
legal department, yeah.
all right. Thank you
Yeah,
so
and
much.
so the motion outside of that stayed the same, took away that condition of using money to pay debts and just took the money away. And so with that extra money, we'll just disperse that amongst all the other centers that we contract with. And that would be for this year. Certainly, if we're confident next year that issues have been addressed, then they would receive their funding again.
Yeah, that cookie was amazing.
And I do know, I forgot to mention this, I do know Ms. Johnson has been working on a binder of sorts of just kind of to help with that transition process for whoever's going to be the new interim. Because she was getting some clarity on things that are expectations from the contract. So she can make sure that new person will know dates and timeframes and information that needs to come to us. So it can go to you.
Okay, thank you, Brenton. Now we will move on to our contractual activities. Hannah, will you start us off with the partners in policymaking videos and youth leadership initiatives?
Yes. So, partners in policymaking, this last quarter, they started recruiting for the 2024 class. We got 37. We had 38 applications in, and it's probably not in all of the updates, status report update, but the selection committee met last week. They selected 25 applicants for next year's class with 5 alternates. But 38 applications is great. Great problem to have to encourage people to reapply next year. And there's a lot of information in your status report about what boards and commissions and what the graduates are doing. But I will say 2 of our graduates from this year have applied for the council and have been recommended. So y'all will be talking about them tomorrow. But other than that, you can, I don't know if you want me to go through every single one of those, probably not. But I'd be happy to. Y'all just love listening to me.
How many graduates are on the council?
Currently,
Correct.
5. And hopefully more to come.
Yes, ma'am.
And what I know is anxiously awaiting an answer. He asked me every time he sees me.
Yes.
There's an answer.
I guess we'll find out. So that's partners. Obviously, the classes start in January. How many applicants?
Yeah.
38 and 25 were selected.
No, I'm joking.
Is that a normal amount or is that more of what is usually received? Just asking. 30?
Say like last year, we did not have 38.
Okay,
We had a hard time even getting the 25.
okay.
And then we only ended up graduating 13, right? Only 13 of the maybe 18 that started.
I think it ended up being 12. We had one last minute.
Right, that's right.
Like class, the 4th session, I think we had one not able to.
I would say it's been a little lower the last few years, but it hasn't traditionally been low. I think these are more accurate. numbers,
Pre-COVID numbers.
pre-COVID numbers.
My class in 14, we had 15 and 0 men. It felt like high school.
Any other questions about partners?
What do you think brought the change besides it being COVID being causing the numbers to decline? What do you think brought about this change, an increase in numbers?
I think this was our first year back. 2023 was our first class back since COVID and fully in person. So I think that played a big role that these applicants were able to then go. They were very excited, loved it being in person. So I think there was a lot more promotion from our graduates this year. And our coordinator was, our coordinator is.
Really good at outreaches.
We had a lot from her region, a lot from her
She's
region.
very passionate about partners because she's a graduate.
So she was very passionate about bringing it back to where it was, and she put in a lot of hard work with recruitment this time.
Yeah, she's
Kudos.
doing amazing. Great hire. Anyone else? Or I keep talking some more? Okay. As far as the video and visuals, this last quarter, we were with O'Neill Communications, they changed their name to 23 East, but they completed 6 new videos for the fully included video series on supported decision-making, early steps, IEP, TEFRA, waiver services, and LRS. Those are all on the website, the council's YouTube, and we have a plan to get them all pushed out via social media as well. So that's the videos. Each of those also have infographics that were made for them. I don't know if infographics is the right word. Is that the right word I'm thinking of? Okay. Second guess myself. Heard it sounded weird. But we have infographics for each of those as well that will be pushed out via social media, Facebook and Twitter. Any questions on those? All right, moving right along. The Youth Leadership Forum, last quarter, they actually had the first Youth Leadership Forum. I don't know how much they talked about it during the July meeting, because it happened the week before the July meeting. I don't know if Stephanie,
About it, I think.
I figured that y'all probably talked about it a lot, even though it wasn't part of the quarter.
What,
YLF,
you know, what? 1.1.9. Video.
oh, 1.1.5.
No, don't what y'all. There is no more, like 1.5.
Is it still 1.1.5?
Okay, yeah. With the video,
My paper might be.
1.1.5, yeah.
I was in the big plan to try to find.
I want.
It worked and you succeeded. I'm messing with. Do
On page 4 of the status report, if you're looking at that.
you have any questions about it, Bill?
No, I want.
You wanna make one up for me? Okay. Got it.
Oh. Y'all did all these videos this quarter.
The last couple of quarters, they've been working toward them. So if you notice in July and I believe in April as well, there weren't any videos pushed. It was all the legwork in advance. So now we're actually getting the product, which has come out this quarter.
On the part of the partners.
But yeah, we want to thank
We
you
weren't gonna
guys.
throw that out there.
I know, I was just gonna keep it.
That's okay.
I mean, with legislative session and then like the budget being cut and we were waiting to see what the governor was gonna do with that. Things just got kind of pushed back, but thank you OCD for helping us. with those videos.
Yes. But yeah, so Youth Leadership Forum, they had it here in 2023 in July. They had 11 delegates. They started and completed the program. We met afterward, had a debriefing session to just kind of get ready for next year. So Lillian and the rest of the crew have all been just getting ready for next year. Their goal is to have 14 delegates, and they have a couple other things they're going to be doing to make sure that it's just one step greater next year.
Will it be at the same place or will it be somewhere different?
They were looking into that.
Okay.
Hey, give an update.
I can
Barbara?
make public comment, Nicole Flores, we're the fiscal agent for a while now. We're actually doing tours. October 30th, we're gonna tour UL again to see. And we're also doing some tours and looking into spaces for the alumni event and for the staff of, training and get together before YLF next year.
Different dorm rooms.
There's only so much we can do with the college dorm.
Well, then I'm going to a hotel.
They'll put the air mattress on top of their mattress and they'll feel better.
Well, council member, good work, huh?
Once you get past, once you get past, you can't sleep on.
Was like, I was telling my neck those dorm beds, like, I was like, me, he was telling me, oh yeah, I remember in college, those, I'm like, no, Dad, you were in 40 trying to on the dorm bed. I know Renata asked if
Sorry.
council members will be able to help with the planning, Nicole. Are y'all still having like open meetings as far as like with planning and getting advice from families?
Not yet. I
Okay.
think it's just because we're still trying to get the place first, and once we can get that, we'll have more information. But we do have more time to plan this year and not just the 6 months, so it's gonna be a little, we have more breathing room. this year.
So. Yeah, so I guess whenever you guys do open the planning, can you share it with us so we can make sure that the council members are aware? Okay, thanks.
Jill, did you have anything else?
So, okay, I know that some of our delegates were interested in being staff. What is our plan to get that ball rolling?
For that, we're gonna start looking at applications again, that we actually have, I don't have the calendar with me because it still hasn't been set. We're looking at places right now, and we're always doing the outreach, but looking at more of the recruitment piece starting in the new calendar year.
And then, will old staff have to apply again?
Well, everybody will have to put in an application just to get all of the background checks and everything. So we
Okay.
go through the process.
Okay.
Any other questions for me or Nicole? All right, well, that's it for me.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Hannah. We'll now move on to Rakisha. Will you give us an update on LACAN, Families Helping Families and Supported Decision Making?
Yes, ma'am. All right, so LACAN, as of September 2023, LACAN has had over 6,730 individuals registered for the council and LACAN listserv to receive information and action alerts related to home and community-based services, employment, education, and early intervention. Last fiscal year, they had 16 action alerts with 2,266 actions taken, 9 yellow shirt days with 134 in attendance, and 24 testimonies provided. LACAN leaders supported members in 84 formal legislative visits, of which 49 were key committee members to discuss the year's advocacy agenda. They continue to host 2 LACAN leader conference calls per month to discuss updates and current concerns and issues, to develop strategies to better educate, support, and lead the LACAN members. Last quarterly meeting, we discussed having a new LACAN leader for Region 9. Since then, she has started, so all positions are filled. Our summer leader training for LACAN was held on August 24th. And that was to discuss ideas, strategies, and to recruit. Strategies to recruit, engage, and teach new members. The leaders also discussed things that can be done during the legislative off session. Since July 1st, 2023, there have been a total of 20 community input member meetings conducted by LACAN leaders and the FHF directors, with a total of 216 individuals in attendance to discuss concerns and ideas for the 2024 legislative advocacy agenda. LaCan leaders and FHF directors participated in the 2024 legislative kickoff. That was on September the 21st of 2023. The advocacy leaders discussed, prioritized, and rated a total of 83 concerns for the 2024 legislative advocacy agenda. Any questions, comments, or concerns? All right, so I'll move over to FHF, or Families Helping Families. Last fiscal year, the centers assisted a total of 19,768 individuals with disabilities and families with information, referral, peer-to-peer, and other supports. There have been over 42,535 units of information and referrals completed, with 371 trainings conducted, with a total of 8,093 individuals in attendance. Centers have also conducted 403 outreach activities to hospitals, pediatricians, school districts, applied behavior analysts, clinics, and physical therapy clinics. In your package, you got a year-end report. Listed in the year-end report kind of gave you information about the 483 surveys that were completed. 98% of those surveys show that the individuals and family members were satisfied with the services received. And it also documented that 7 out of the 9 regions met or exceeded all deliverables. The two regions that did not meet the deliverables, the first one was Families Helping Families of New Orleans. They were unable to meet the deliverable of the 504 Rehabilitation Act training and complete at least 25 outreaches. According to their action plan, the director has implemented a deliverable tracking system to ensure deliverables are met in the future. Each deliverable is marked on a board, and a check is placed by the completed deliverable when the paperwork and supporting documentation is turned in. And for Bayou and Families Helping Families, the data shows that they were unable to meet the deliverable for providing information and referrals to individuals in need. However, there are other reports that shows that the deliverable was in fact met. During the fiscal year, the center changed their data reporting system to a new system, and they were failing to report the information accurately. So the director immediately got on top of things and got that issue resolved. So moving forward, there should not be an issue with that. And you also had in your packet the first quarter performance data. Please keep in mind with that data that all information was not reported at the time the paperwork was completed for you guys, but all regions are on track to meet their deliverable for this upcoming fiscal year or this current fiscal year. And that's it for Families Helping Families. Any questions?
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Call on yourself.
I just was wondering about the deliverables. I'm just worried with it being like manually, I'm assuming it's like an expo marker, a check mark on the board to manage your like contractual agreement. Maybe it should be like,
It could just be raised or,
yeah, like,
yeah, it's not
Like maybe something computer, like
yeah,
computer. Okay,
that's like my only concern with that.
I can definitely let them know about your recommendation.
Is anybody concerned about NOLA?
Yeah, that's like,
Yeah,
what?
well, I mean, the first quarter.
Well, they didn't turn in their information
Okay.
by the time that this report was
Okay.
created. So
Yeah.
since then, it has been submitted. It's just the report to you guys have to be completed, so you can, you can have it in time for them. Yes.
So the center satisfaction survey data, is that them calling somebody and asking them the questions over the phone, or that's something that they send out and receive?
That's something that they send out and receive, or it's done like after they've done a training or something like that. But actually what we did when we went out to we did in-person auditing. And when we went out, we did random calls to complete, and they were all really good as far as all of the families were satisfied with the services that they received. So actually for most of the regions, we did 3, and for New Orleans, we did satisfaction surveys, surveys.
Okay, thank you, Lakeisha.
All right,
Um,
so the last thing I have, the last thing I have for the decision making, as of September of 2023, there were 9 trainings that have occurred with a total of 150 participants in attendance. Their mentoring program, they have 8 self-advocates being mentored through the entire supported decision-making process. And 7 are self-advocates that have completed the supported decision-making process, but they're still being monitored. Any questions about that? All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, now Britton, will you give us an update on the remaining initiatives?
Okay, so your next or your last 2 initiatives, we'll look at the first responder pilot, that is activity 2.2.1. So we contracted with Interaction Advisory Group. And so this is a training that is targeting our first responders. So that's law enforcement, firefighters, EMTs, or emergency medical technicians, or similar professions. And the idea is to get them trained on proper protocols and procedures when interacting with individuals with disabilities. During this past quarter, IAG spent a lot of time really connecting with agencies across the state because we are renewing this initiative beginning October 1. So they spent a lot of time just trying to connect with more departments to see who they would be able to reach and establish those trainings with. Coming up this fiscal year. They also spent time redesigning their website. And so this is going to give them some enhanced capabilities to offer different caregiver trainings. We sent something out, I don't remember, I think it was August, September, about a master class that they did. And it was sort of this program that he could do via his website. And he is the contractor. His name is Dustin, sorry. Through the website that kind of offers this sort of interactive training that he was able to do with caregivers. So he spent a lot of time revamping that. And then in August, we had 3 trainings at the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office Training Academy. There were 50 deputies trained there. September 26th, that's when that caregiver masterclass was hosted, and there were 41 people that attended there. And so this past fiscal year, we had 465 first responders that were trained. 91 attended the community events that were hosted. And so that's all I have for that particular project. Any questions there? Yes.
I went and talked to our police force, our sheriff, our police person in charge, because we have a police and a sheriff, and found out they had a CAD system. And what it is that it's an alert that if the names put it or addresses put into a system and the 911 system, it alerts the responders that there is a person with disability or oxygen when they get there. Come to find out, it had been instituted for 4 years in our city and I hadn't even known about it. So what we're doing is the sheriff agency has also instituted it, but we're taking it a bit further with the nonprofit I started with autism. And we're printing out the CAD forms, sending it to our parents if they want to fill it out, and we'll input it for them. Because that's another way of getting the word out to parents that I have a special needs person here living here, or even if it's just someone on oxygen or need help leaving the premises, you know, and then not that they don't want to leave, they just can't, they need assistance. So that might be something too, that they need to get the word out as well.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's because not many people know, like, it was up and going for 4 years and we didn't even know about it.
Yeah. Okay.
So
What is it called?
it's called a CAD system.
Like CAD?
Yeah, I can't remember what it's.
I know everybody has a
Well, it's in-
different,
yeah.
but it's just one piece of paper that the parents fill out, and they have an app, but it's easier. Parents won't do it on their phone. They can just fill it out, and that's our next thing to do, just
get it to the parents so we can have that uploaded and have more, with our special needs population growing.
Yeah, and we can bring that up to IAG, so when he does his trainings, he can mention it to
Yeah.
his deputies and EMTs and stuff to
Just
encourage communities to,
Mhm.
because this coming year, well, so the one we're in now, I was
Mhm.
giving you this past quarters, but so this quarter is focusing strictly on first responders and not the community events
Mhm.
side of things. Because honestly, there has not been great turnout to those. We had the 91 in attendance for a community event this past year. Most of them were that one class that he did at the end. But we would try to get the community involved in different events with the sheriffs or the police station or whoever he was working with in that training. We really didn't have great turnout. But decent turnout in St. Tammany, but other places, there wasn't a lot of turnout. And so we've opted just to focus on our first responders this year moving forward. But a lot of them that he has worked with in the past have been committed to continuing to try to do those community events just to establish those relationships. So we're hoping that'll continue. Questions
I'm
on
gonna
that?
put it up for you, Brooke. I'll put it up for you.
The last one is our emergency preparedness and response training. That's activity 2.2.2. So this is with Niagara University, and so that's just establishing a training program here. So it's targeting individuals that have the responsibility of emergency planning, preparedness, response, and recovery as it pertains to individuals with developmental disabilities. This past quarter, we had trainings that were held in the Houma Thibodeau area on September 25th and 26th, and then in Lake Charles, September 27th through 28th. I know between the two trainings, there were 32 individuals that attended. There were 15 no-shows, unfortunately. We've always had issues with no-shows, but at least we had, and I think each class he does probably like 40 to 50 per class. It's really going to depend on the size room he was able to locate. So I do know there were 32 that attended between the two trainings. I don't have the breakdown of how many were at each, but if I'm not mistaken, Lake Charles did not have a very strong turnout, which is unfortunate. But I'll know more about that once I get his final report in to know, maybe since the last time we spoke, more individuals had turned up for that training. But I know we had some really low registration numbers for Lake Charles at that point in time. But so far we've had, at least this past year, we've had over 100 not first responders, 100 attendees at this particular initiative. It is going to start again this fiscal year, and it takes a few months between each training to kind of get these things organized. So I know he's looking to come back to New Orleans and Baton Rouge probably around like early 2024, so February-ish timeframe. We had really great turnouts in both those areas, so I'm hoping that those the fact that he's coming back to those areas, there has been a demand and a request to come back to those areas for sure. I know we're also going to try to get into the Lafayette area because we have not done that area yet. And that has been somewhat difficult to get the right people on the phone to try to get something going there, but there's been some legwork to try to do that. So I hope we can get out in that area. And I know there was a request at one point in time to get out to the Hammond area. That one had not been, I don't want to say not a focus because it is a focus because they want us to go there. But it's also a very easy location to hit the New Orleans or the Baton Rouge training. So maybe this year we'll be able to do something specifically in Hammond. We'll have to look at the attendees that we have in the upcoming New Orleans and Baton Rouge trainings to see if that's, if we still have the interest in that particular area. But with the exception of Lafayette, I think we pretty much hit all the other areas of the state. So we're going to try to get into Lafayette. But look out for information probably in the next few months about the New Orleans and Baton Rouge trainings that are coming back. So it does focus on those individuals that are responsible for emergency planning and that, but anyone is welcome to attend. There's either a 2-day session or a half-day session that you can attend, and it's free. It's no cost to anyone that wants to attend. Yes.
Brennan, who do you need to get in touch with at Lafayette? Is
I'll
it a
have to
city,
see.
is it city officials? Because I work for the city government.
Yeah, I mean, usually he's trying to coordinate with any of the emergency managers from that particular region. And I say Lafayette, it may not be Lafayette specifically, it might happen in New Iberia or somewhere just in that general region. I'm not sure who he has spoken to. I'd have to try to get that information, but certainly any
What?
contacts that you might have or that
Yeah,
anyone
my
has.
boss is community development.
Yeah,
Or it's an election right now, and there's a runoff, so you may want to strike
right.
while the iron is hot.
Good point, good point. Yeah,
Shut up.
yeah. And I mean, certainly any connections you have anywhere in the state, I mean, we can connect them with Dave, who is the trainer. One thing that he's been trying to focus on, and there's really been not a whole lot of emergency managers in particular that want to attend these trainings. I don't know why. Some of it is kind of, we know what we know what we're doing. So I don't know if that is still a barrier, but we have a lot of folks that are involved in emergency planning and preparedness that attend, but those specific managers for a parish or a city or your particular region have not really shown up and have kind of not wanted to be involved, which we found kind of surprising. So that's some work we have to do, but Bambi's been to multiple of the trainings.
I didn't get to go to the last piece. So in Acadiana Human Service District has a big training room that was
Awesome.
accommodate,
Okay,
I think, so I could let him know.
yeah, that'd be great.
When are they planning those trainings?
That he hasn't planned anything outside of the coming around back to New Orleans or Baton Rouge yet.
So there's no future ones planned,
Not yet.
but
Yeah.
they have a contract to do it in this fiscal year.
Yeah, he's same as last year, between 4 and 5 different trainings that he'll try to do statewide. He travels around, oh gosh, like 20 states or so that he does this same initiative, so he's constantly on the road. And so he juggles that, like what can he work between the schedules of the people that can help him here to get some of the stuff arranged and what he's got going on in other places. So we'll hear, right now he's working on New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and maybe a few months after that, he'll knock out 2 or 3 more. But yeah, but that's a good location. That works. Thanks.
We maybe, so, I know we recently did, and our emergency preparedness module that we did was really focused on providers and kind of for case managers and providers who are helping people with disabilities prepare things to do. We actually put it out on Eventbrite just because that happened to be a mechanism we used. We had over 800 people enroll from like even from Guam, somebody enrolled in all different states. And so
Was this a virtual one? Yeah.
maybe that's why, I don't know.
And when we did virtual ones, we had a lot of people attend, but these are, the content of this training is more kind of hands-on and it's better suited in person, not a
Okay.
virtual.
But I guess I'm just trying to think, I wonder if there's anything we could have learned from that that might help point to how to better do, I don't know. It sounds like
Yeah.
you need outreach to those individual regional, but I don't know.
Yeah,
It's like the need is out there unless it's just that the in-person is scaring people. I don't know.
I don't know, I'm not sure. And then there are some places where we get really great turnouts and then some we don't. I think when he went to Shreveport, there were 4 people.
Oh, God.
And I'm like, well,
Monroe, right? Monroe had 8.
I think Monroe had more. Monroe had like 6. But, you know, they had a hurricane just what? years ago. It happens up there, and it's more than just hurricanes. I mean, you're talking, we had wildfires this year. How often do we have wildfires around here? So it's all these things. It's not just hurricane specific, but that's what we deal more with down here. So we tend to have a lot more people that want to attend down here.
But that's up north get us from down here, so.
Exactly, yeah. But some of it, I think, is, it takes time. Other states that have this particular initiative, he's been doing this for a while. We're fairly new to doing this initiative with him. Other states, he's had multi-year contracts with them to make sure that he blankets the state. And I think word of mouth helps.
I wonder if there'd be a way to talk to some of the other states that he's engaged with to find out how did they communicate and do outreach to others to
Yeah.
participation.
And I don't think it's, as far as the emergency managers, I don't know that it's super unique to us. I think that's the case in some areas. But some states really buy into it. I don't want to mislabel a state, but it is a northern state. I can't remember which one. But their emergency managers are just all over this. But down here, not so much. Other folks dealing with emergency, yeah, they've been involved, but I don't know what it is with. But what I need to do is, and he has sent me some names in the past, and I have to get them from him again, and maybe I can share that with some of you if you know any of these people, or I don't want to like throw names out there right now, but yeah, but there are a lot of associations of emergency managers and stuff here that we've tried to connect with and get the information out, and they're with their top level representatives, and that is not trickling down. They have not been receptive to a lot of involvement. I'm not sure why. I don't think he is either.
Connect
Yeah.
some with in LDH too, just let me know that. We can maybe connect with some of our emergency preparedness, ESFA.
Yeah.
If they had any ideas.
Maybe so. That'd be great. But it's still doing well. We have really good turnouts for the most part. It is not intended to be a very large training session. It's not meant to have 150 people attend. It's meant to be kind of smaller so you can have that time to be able to connect, to be able to answer questions. It's a lot of information. So he really likes to keep it smaller, to have a lot more of that one-on-one conversation with people that are there. But it's great. If you haven't been, I recommend trying to go.
It's a great chunk.
And you get this nice, thick 12-inch binder and stuff after the information, which is great because there's a lot of stuff that you can reference later and share. Yeah. And so if you are an emergency manager, or you are in some sort of capacity dealing with that, there are some requirements after the training of ultimately making sure that you're implementing some of the things that he is talking about. For those of you parents, self-advocates that attend, that requirement isn't, there's no requirement for you to do things after the training. It's just for your information and to know what you can hold your local officials accountable for. There's a lot of great information in it. That's all I got.
Okay. Thank you, Brett. Do we have any additional questions?
I have a question. But not about these two trainings. I have a question about another topic.
We have time.
Yeah, we have time.
So what was the time frame between the family helping NOLA audit and the audit results in the July meeting? And then when did the ED resign?
If I am not mistaken, the audit, I think, came out in maybe April or something, and I think we found out about it in May, and then we had the July meeting, which is the third week of July, and we got an email September 26th, I believe, saying that the director would resign. Or is planning to resign at the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah. But I do know the audit, it came out in mid to late spring, somewhere in there, and then we got it after that. And if I'm not I think it's in your documents, but they are looking to have their next audit, I guess, come out probably by the end of the year, I think is their target date. I know they're in the process of, all the centers are in the process of doing their audits again. Yeah.
So what is, or is there a difference between like y'all's audit that y'all do for every center, and then is there a bigger audit? Or like, how does that work?
Yeah, so the audit that we do, we go to the centers, and our audit is strictly just looking at compliance for
Y'all's.
our contract.
Okay.
So I would preface that with saying we are not accountants. We are not financial auditors. We are not forensic accountants. So we can't dive into a lot of the details that an auditor does for the legislative audits that these centers do. So ours is more surface level information. We're seeing what you do to meet our contractual deliverables. We look at the relationship of staff with their directors, the director with the board with the director. We call families. If there's problems, we tend to call a few more than we usually do, just random calls. We pull random logs of people that have tried to get services from FHF. And we just call and find out about their experience and how things went. We brainstorm ideas about what's working for them, what's not working, what we see as a problem, what they see are problems. So it's more surface level. And then we use these audits that really look at the financial side of things to help us know, is a center fiscally sound? And there are a lot of variables in there. I mean, you have some centers, I think it came up in conversation in July about running on lines of credit and stuff. And, you have some centers that are sometimes waiting on payments from other places. And so you provided the service, you have to wait to be paid. You might have to dip into a line of credit to help offset not receiving that reimbursement until you get it, and then you're able to pay everything back. So there's a lot of things that we are just not equipped to make judgment calls on, that we use these audits, these legislative audit findings to help us kind of get a better idea of what's going on at a center. And they all do them, yeah.
So what made, I think I know that, what made the council invest in NOLA?
Well, we look at all the audits. And so just based on the findings, we decided we needed to discuss. I mean, there was also, we talked about this in July, but we had already started asking questions about this audit before we got the email from some concerned parents. And that also escalates it because that went out to the executive committee and other funders. And so we were already having those conversations before we got that, but that we needed to have that conversation as well. But also, I mean, every center, you see it in here, they might not achieve a deliverable. There might be this, there might be that. A lot of these things we can handle on our own. It doesn't rise to the level of needing to come here and have this conversation. We just handle our own little corrective action plans. But sometimes whenever we feel like things may be getting a bit out of hand, we'll bring it back to the council to have those conversations. Especially whenever we know that there needs to be more than just a written corrective action plan. We need some more guidance on how you would like to handle something. And that does remind me, I forgot to mention, whenever I gave you the update, Ms. Johnson did say the board has reached out to that group of parents or that email that sent their concerns. They've reached out multiple times, but have not to meet with these individuals and have not received any responses or feedback from them. So they have not received any additional complaints from that group or anyone else. But they have not been able to meet with that particular group to address their concerns.
Right. I thought it was anonymous.
It may have been, but I think they did try to have some sort of conversation with them I mean, if you have concerns and you want it addressed, they were hoping to get more details to be able to address those concerns. Whether anonymous or not, they reached out to try and have that conversation. I can't speak more to it than that because I didn't actually reach out. I'm just telling you what I was told.
How did they reach out if it was an anonymous email?
To that email.
Yeah, email.
Well, I just, to me, that doesn't end up
Yeah, it's my understanding they just responded to that email.
ending up.
Yeah. And until that email, we had also not received any concerns in our office.
And the only thing on here, and please tell me if I'm wrong, I'm looking at the first quarter performance data for NOLA. They have, you know, the information and referrals and the peer support, but I don't see anything else.
They didn't have,
Oh, she sent it?
yeah.
Oh, but it's late.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
So this was some of the data before, or?
Yeah, so what we try to do, well, I can speak for my committees, but that's probably the same for most committees. We try to get you the information at the latest a week before your
Right,
meeting
so,
happens.
yeah, okay.
And so nothing you're gonna have is gonna be completely up to date. Because we're always getting information.
Right,
Generally, this type of information is due to us by the 10th. The way this meeting falls, you generally have to get this information before the 10th. And so we wouldn't have time to correct that report.
I'm just a little worrying that that's,
And Lauren, some of the information is submitted monthly. And the information that you're looking at that have zeros, that's information that's submitted quarterly. So
Right.
their
Okay.
quarterly report had not been submitted yet. That's why.
okay, that's, yeah. I mean,
So the order we're reviewing is the first order, and that was from August to
So
with shaking her head no if I'm correctly on vision.
so the Families Helping Families initiative that we had, or that contract gets really interesting because that runs off of a state fiscal year. And by all accounts, the council does everything off of a federal fiscal year.
right.
So in the status report, you get information from October, from a federal perspective, from the October, well, you would have gotten the fourth quarter, so that would have been July, September, October.
Okay.
Yeah.
August.
July, August, September, right? The information you're getting here is actually gonna be based off of the state federal fiscal, the state fiscal year, which is,
I'm sorry, yeah.
oh my goodness, I know, it does, it really gets confusing. So
Quarter July,
August, September,
after July, thank you. Whoever said August.
So it's really.
but that happens to be the first quarter of the state.
For the
Yeah.
federal, right.
Let's just call it.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
So if you go by the state year, it's the first quarter.
Yeah,
If it's federal, it's the fourth quarter.
Okay,
Yeah.
so for all and other things, families helping.
everything is federal.
We're reviewing fourth quarter dino, which is July through September.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The feds are always behind the state for 3 months.
Till they catch you.
So it does get a little confusing. But yeah, so we talk about it in that first quarter here, but whenever we put it on the status report for you, since that is all reported from a federal perspective, we include federal numbers for FHF in our status report, but we give you more up-to-date information in the committee whenever we have it.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. Very confusing. I understand.
Try working in both of them.
Exactly. Working in both of
And
us.
sending reports.
Awfully
Yeah,
confusing.
exactly. It's the only reason I know.
Any other questions?
Reports.
Okay. Hearing no additional.
Let's hold that.
Hearing no additional questions, we will move on to announcements. Please note, after this meeting, our Education and Employment Committee will be meeting in this room. Also, tomorrow is the full council meeting, which will start at 8:30 a.m. Does anyone on the committee have any announcements to make?
Just to let you know, this meeting is ending a little early, so at 3 o'clock, the education meeting will start, Education and Employment Committee.
Okay. If there are no objections, we can adjourn by unanimous consent. Any objections? I hereby adjourn the meeting at 2:28 PM. Oh, I signed up for that.
Yeah, special education.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Yes.